Coffee, Calm and Connection is about being human. It's about you choosing to prioritize your well-being, putting the time in to strengthen your resilience to adversity, and being part of a community that holds you accountable and offers support when the going gets tough. Our podcasts bring expert insight and real-life experiences together for you to enjoy and learn what it is that makes us human and how to work with it. Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on Coffee, Calm and Connections podcast. I'm really excited to have you both here, and I think it's going to be quite an interesting conversation because I haven't done one of the Coffee Calm podcasts with two people, let alone two people who are married and run a business together. So I am so interested in that dynamic. Do you want to give us a bit of a background, Bex, about you and who you are and how you got to where you are? And then same question to you, Wes.
Yeah, so I'm obviously Wes and I are married. We've been married 15 years next month, well, May. We've been together for 20 years, haven't we? So we met obviously very young. Yeah, we have two children together, two high maintenance, headstrong girls. We have been running Glowsure for 7.5 years now. Yeah, 7.5 years. So we had our first child. She was born in October 2013. We'd already decided before that we were opening Glowsure. So we'd just been going through the FCA authorization and things whilst I was pregnant. And we were positive that was going to be a good idea, having our first child and leaving, some well-paid, secure jobs and opening a business. So she was born October 2013. I'd read all the baby books I could get my hands on, so I was really confident that I was going to be a great mum and it was going to be really easy. That couldn't be further from the truth.
Did you go down the Gina Ford route?
No, I didn't.
I did with my first.
I did lots of other routes. And then we started Glowsure January 2014, so she was only 3 months old, so we were very sleep deprived. Opened our business. That's
an incredible journey, and I want to talk to you about the challenges around that time, because like you say, leaving a well-paid job to go, did you have a book of business, all of that kind of stuff. But Wes, do you want to give us your take on it, and let's get into the nitty-gritty stuff?
Yeah, sure. So a bit of background. Bex and I worked together previously before Glowsure was set up as well. So we'd had experience of working together, and we worked really well. Glowsure was formed, effectively it was formed, it's one of those points in your life where Bex fell pregnant, and we kind of looked at the next 10 years and where it would be if we stayed as we were, and in the main, like the flexibility of family life, which is one of our key values. It's to make sure that we don't have to answer to anyone if we want to take time off and need time with the kids effectively. And also knowing that then going to school, I wanted to be able to take them to school and I wanted to be able to pick them up, but on our terms, not someone else's. So that was really important to us. And where we were working previously, we weren't working together at that point. I was at a brokerage and Bex was a well-known larger brokerage. And it's important to say that Bex absolutely loved her job that she was before as well. She was PA to some real good guys, characters that are really well known within the insurance industry, and she absolutely loved that job. So it was a fairly difficult decision for you, but for me, it's one of those points in your life where you just get this burning desire inside of you, and it come out of anger as well, to be honest. But it was one of those points where I knew that we just had to do it, and there was nothing that was going to stop us from doing it.
We used to, sorry to interrupt. We used to go when I was pregnant. And I was huge when I was pregnant as well. I was like a whale. So I exercised quite far, as far as I could do. And then after that, we just used to go out for walks every evening because I just couldn't jump around anymore. So we used to go out for walks every evening. And I think you were so frustrated where you were at the time, weren't you? And just kept listening to these frustrations and things. So this was early on in the pregnancy, wasn't it? And but the only way you can change it is you either leave, but you're going to probably walk into those same frustrations, or we do it ourselves. That's the only way you're going to be able to change those frustrations. And we literally, I think we stopped on our walk, didn't we? And just looked at each other and we were like, okay, let's do this.
And at one key moment, I woke up the following morning at 5 o'clock in the morning and drew a spider diagram of everything that I needed to do to set up the business.
We've got it in the office, haven't we?
It's in the office.
On the wall is the reminder.
5 o'clock one morning, woke up and I'm like, right, let's do this.
Right.
So done a massive spider chart. And then at the time, we had to be really strategic about how we did it. And we probably went around about setting up the business the wrong way, merely because it had to be really quiet. It couldn't get out. So we set up a really good business plan, which, to be fair, Bex wrote most of it. So we sat down and worked about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock every night. And then, effectively contacted insurers and just went that path, got a really good compliance company, and never looked back. Yeah,
and we didn't have any doubt during that time either, did we? It was just full steam ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, to add to that as well, so we arranged finance. We got private finance to set up the business. We didn't arrange a massive amount. It was 35,000, but we kept half of it to pay ourselves, because we didn't pay ourselves for the first 5 months whilst the business was set up, and that's all paid. I mean, we paid that back 2 years ago now. So it's
that's incredible. Can I ask you, Wes, a little bit about, obviously, be cryptic if you need to be, what frustrations were you having before, that you said it came out of anger? What were those frustrations? How did it affect you? How did it affect your relationship with family, with work colleagues?
So the frustrations was the business that I was in. I was a director there. It wasn't going in the direction and moving in the way that I kind of foreseed it, and there was various internal issues, between people, and I've not really spoke about this before, so no one really knows, because it's been fairly quiet since. And if they listen to it, they listen to it. But there was issues internally, and there was for years, and those issues kind of manifested into a lot of frustrations. And effectively, when Bex became pregnant, it was hitting those issues on the head. So then try and see where the future was for us. And for me, within that business, I had a small shareholding. To be fair, I'd like to say on record that the top guys gave me the opportunity, and I've got a lot to thank them. So I'm not being detrimental to them as individuals, because they were awesome in taking me on and giving me an opportunity. And at that point, I didn't have the experience to actually go into it. I just jumped into it with both feet and just got on and did it and learned on the job. So I'm very grateful to them for that. But after a period of time, it was clear that they were never, ever going to really sort out their issues and be in harmony for the business to go and to modernise. It needed to modernise.
And I think that's another key point, isn't it? You were a lot younger than them. So they liked the way that they did things, and they were happy where it was.
And they had a successful business as well. It was a really successful business. And their way wasn't the wrong way. It just, as I developed as a person and in that role, it wasn't my way. And my characters, I'm not that great at taking instruction. I'm not great at being told what to do, basically. I like my freedom.
In all the personality tests we've done, so Wes is a high D, or if he's a colour, he's red.
So am I. Does that surprise you?
Yeah. So that was the main driver. And after, within those years of being in that position, I've kind of adapted a natural formula, which I've learned from these guys. And my thinking was that if we applied that formula into our own business, but modernized it, then there's no way that it was going to fail. It was a win-win. Yes, it was going to be hard work. Yes, we took a massive pay cut, and I'm talking like a third. So we only we literally were living on a third of what we were bringing in jointly. We'd just moved house, pretty much. Oh no, we've been living in that house for like 2 years, I think. So, but we literally had to plan down to the pen. And change a lifestyle change completely. but it was freedom.
Yeah.
How did that affect you? I mean, challenge and opportunity are two sides of the same coin, and you've just highlighted the opportunity you got within that business became a challenge for reasons you've just said. So it's always two sides of the same coin, and freedom has an awful lot to be said for it. And I'm totally in camp freedom, which is why I do what I do. But at the same time, I probably work harder than I ever did. I have an awful lot of sleepless nights, and I did a podcast this morning for Coffee Calm Connection. And during that podcast, one of the things I was speaking to the person about, he said most of his stress comes at night and he starts to worry about things then. And I have been awake since 3 o'clock, half awake, doing that podcast with this person. Going, oh my God, will this night ever end? So the challenge side of freedom for me is that I don't really have an off switch, and there is no one else to take the baton if I have a down day or an off switch or I'm ill or whatever it is. How has that affected you guys, taking a third of the salary, suddenly introducing a new baby, which is always stressful, and yet somehow we go on to do it again and again.
Yeah.
How's it affected you?
So I think in the beginning, particularly having a newborn, we just got on with it. And then as time went on, I think particularly for me, then once we had our second child 2.5 years later, that's when for me, I think I found the biggest struggle, because in those first 2 years of the business, it was still really exciting. Every new client we got was really exciting. We hardly lost, well, obviously in the first year, you're not losing any business, it's all new business. So it was really exciting, wasn't it? And it seemed easy to get the new business. It just, because any business was great. So, and everything we were doing was new, wasn't it? It had that really nice energy about it, you know, even though we were exhausted. So actually putting in those hours and things, I don't know how. I look back and think, I don't know how, because now we have one sleepless night and it just throws us off for the week, doesn't it? You think, how did you get through that in those early days? So I think that energy of that newness, it being our business, just that excitement around it, that got us through it. The money side of things was a bit of a struggle, wasn't it? Going from, because we led a comfortable life, really. We could go and, you know, buy what we wanted. We would go on really nice holidays, and that just had to stop.
It was short term.
It was short term.
We knew it was short term.
So
that's the difference. We had a plan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. So although it was kind of difficult, we knew it wasn't going to be forever. But then, so yeah, we had our then second child, like you said, we wanted to do it again, I don't know why, but 2.5 years later, and it was then for me kind of the overwhelm hit me, and it was that constant, because then what happened, we were going into like the third year of the business and things, and then you do start to lose some clients as well, but also you start to, you know, cash flow and things, you need, as quick as the cash can come, the cash can go. We wanted to just keep going forward, didn't we? Keep expanding. So, and you're always kind of in that weird tussle period as well. But for me, keeping up then with the house, you know, doing the, just running a house, the weird extra responsibilities that come with, oh my goodness, I've now got 2 human beings that I'm responsible for. I still don't get used to that. So that's always there, isn't it? That never goes. I guess us trying to still have a really, you know, keep a happy relationship. So for me, after that point, probably Mia was about 6 months old, and I was like, whoa, no. Like, you know, I hit that wall for a while.
But I think it's important to say as well that for us, this is where kind of our teamwork changed a lot.
Yeah, this is probably the start of it. This was a real turning point for us as a couple, wasn't it? I think
100%.
Yeah, we, I suppose, started on a journey which has taken us into all different directions. And I think I said to you one day, I remember saying, I just need to go out by myself. And I just
and not to Tesco's.
Yeah. Although it was weird that actually to be able to fit in, like doing the food shop, I would have to do it on a Friday night. And I remember walking around the shops thinking, oh, what I used to do on a Friday night, and now look at me. But actually I was almost enjoying it as well, because I could do it on my own.
It's so weird how life changes as you become a grown up. And I
Yeah.
don't think I became a grown up till 30 plus. Sometimes I'm still not a grown up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that
Agree.
changes for me throughout the day as well. You know, in the mornings when we're getting ready for school, and I'm like, yeah, I'm grown up, and then drop them off and I'm driving to work, and I'm like,
Yeah, now I'm not.
yeah,
Shows you see me now, you don't.
5 minutes.
Something you've just said there, which if you're comfortable to, then I would love you to share. You said about 6 months after Mia was born, you hit your wall. What was your wall? What told you that you had hit your wall? What was going on
You know
in
what?
life?
I think it was so the business was just ramping up. We were taking on more staff, so you have that as well. I think then we had a team of there was 5 of us.
Yep.
There was a team of 5 of us. So there's different things that come with that. So then having 2 children that obviously are not at school either, they were at childcare and things, but carrying then the mum guilt as well, because
It's a real thing.
yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, just the kind of whole, house, just managing everything. And I remember just having a meltdown one day about, was it arranging people's sending birthday cards to people? It's like, why am I the one that has to sort out everybody's birthday cards, everybody's birthday? I can't do it. And it's always the silly things, isn't it, that make you break.
One of the most ridiculous arguments and the biggest arguments that Neil and I have ever had was, again, I was heavily pregnant with baby number 2, working full time, living the dream of, high stress levels, anxiety and blah. And we were going to a New Year's Eve party, and we were bringing the cake, and he came back with a Tesco's blue and white stripe ones. Do you remember when they did those? And I was like, funny. Where's the actual cake? And then he pulled another one out, which was a Christmas cake that had a big reduced sticker on. I was like, you had one job. How badly wrong could you get this one job? I tell you, it was almost divorce there and then. And I look back now and I realize the hormones, the overload, the overwhelm, burnout, and also, why did you do that? You add all of that in together, and it's a funny story now, but yeah.
It is so funny because it's the smallest things that make you kind of lose it then, isn't it? But like you said, when you look back and realize it's a build up, obviously, of things.
And then you spend a long time trying to explain the build up. And it's just not necessary to do. So what lessons did you learn about you and your coping strategies during that period, and what did you have to rectify?
Yeah, so for me then, when I kind of hit the wall, and probably not many people apart from you would have known about it, because I'm always very good at putting a smile on my face. And for me, I suddenly realized that I'd almost gone a bit numb to things. And I was probably flipping out a bit more than what I would do. And I just literally felt like my capacity was just completely full. And so remembering somebody's birthday and sending a birthday card out, those silly tiny little things, I just couldn't even fit those in anymore. And it was a really weird feeling, because I don't think I'd felt like that really before. And so yeah, but I remember saying to Wes one day, I just need to go out on my own, and I just drove the car and parked at the seafront. The weather was really bad, and there was a book that caught my eye on, it was on Audible, and I thought, I'm just going to put my earplugs in, give this a go, see what this is. And it was called Mastering Your Mingo, and it was actually, the cover caught my attention. I was like, oh, that looks like a nice book. Anyway, it was a sort of a self-help book, I guess, which I didn't.
What's it called?
It's called Mastering Your Mingo.
Oh, I thought you said Mastering Your Mingo.
Yes.
What is a mingo?
Yeah.
Do you not know what the mingo is?
That's the other book, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, sounds like a vaguely rude word, but I've never heard it before. Am I showing my naivety? Anyway, let's go back to the mean girl. Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose really in its simplest terms, that book was about your inner critic, your inner voice and things, which I didn't even really know I'd had that. I still do on a daily basis, that inner voice telling me I'm not good enough. But I didn't realize that was a thing, and that other people really struggled with that either. So yeah, that just sent me on this other journey, and the book goes through lots of, you know, different mechanisms. Anyway, I started listening to her podcast. Now she has lots of different guests, and the guests that she has on are amazing.
A bit like this podcast and our guests.
Absolutely. And so yeah, I just started introducing, you know, a lot of the people that she would interview, really sort of, you know, big famous people. Everybody would speak about meditation. And again, that's meditation is something like, where do you actually start with that? Well, I thought one day, okay, let's give this a go, and you kind of like sit down, and I'm like, okay, do I have to sit like this? Do I have to sit cross-legged? And it's really weird, it's uncomfortable. And I think, you know, when you first try it, you're like, well, that's a load of BS. And eventually I found my way with that. And that's something I couldn't be without now. And then there's been lots of other things. I think once you start on one kind of, you find a coping mechanism, it really opens you up into lots of other avenues. And I could talk for hours about all the weird things that we're probably into.
Weird.
Not
yeah.
Not
Mingos.
you know, mingos and
Mingos and celery juice. That is the title of this podcast.
Celery juice is a game changer.
Although I've been having that for over a year, and I still really hate it. I have to literally just down it.
I've been quite enjoying it, to be
Have
honest. Yeah, I quite like it. But what you're saying there is really interesting, because one of the things that I don't want Coffee, Calm and Connection to be about is this idea of, I don't want to use this word because it does sound quite derogatory, but victimization.
Yeah.
Like, everybody goes through shit, everybody. And everybody deals with it differently. And some people's shit is a whole lot worse than others, but it doesn't diminish how it feels when you're in it, whatever level you're at.
Yeah.
But, and I said this I probably say it in every single CCC podcast, so apologies to everybody listening, but best phrase ever: if I knock you down, it's my fault. If you don't get up, it's yours.
Yeah.
I love that. And what you're talking about here is getting to the bottom and going, oh, man, how do I get out of this? What do I need to do?
Yeah.
And that level of resilience is incredible, and I think is a really powerful thing to have done, but also to be able to tell people about, because there's always a way out, whether it's an audible, whether it's talking to somebody, whether it's professional help, whether it's a mixture of everything. And I think it's really powerful, really, really powerful. What I'd be interested to ask you, from a different dynamic and feeding into a conversation we had earlier, is what is overwhelm for you, Wes? When have you felt it, and how did it manifest, maybe differently from Bex?
So that's a good question. Just adding to what Bex said earlier as well. So from my perspective, before we started the journey, and without knowing, but I suppose when you got overwhelmed, Bex would go like introverted. She would kind of close off, shut down, so to an extent. And that used to just wind me up. I'd be like, what are you doing? Why are you ignoring me? What's going on? So it was on this journey that you then start to understand, well, actually, that's a kind of a reaction to what's going on in her world. And there's better ways of dealing with it rather than being explosive. So, and it was understanding that. And we started to listen to or we'd listen to a book and we'd be like, oh, that's a really good book, have a listen. Or listen to this podcast, have a listen. And then just by doing that, you would naturally start talking, and then you start to get onto a line and be on the same page. But going back to your question, overwhelmed for me, when I get really stressed, I get burning sensations in my head, which sounds quite bad, but I know at that point that I'm in total overwhelm and I need to go and do something. But for me to overcome overwhelm, meditation's been a massive part in that for me. Every morning, every evening. Another one's exercise. This is different for everyone, and I completely get that. But for me personally, exercise is really, really important for my body and for my mind.
How long do you meditate for?
20 minutes in the morning to half hour, and then of an evening until we fall asleep, which is about 5 minutes. But no, so we meditate together of an evening when we go to bed. And that would be anything from 5 minutes to say 15, 20. it's normally 5 because Bex is like, just choose a short one. But in the mornings, we've got our own separate routine. We tend to get up between 5:15 to 5:30 every morning. And then we kind of separate and do our own things. Like I said, we've got our own routine. And I tend to meditate for like 20 minutes to half hour every morning.
Do you know what I find really interesting? The more I get into this, this sort of coffee calm connection, the more people I speak to, the critical factor, it appears to me as a non-mental health professional, the critical factor is control and having the plan and the process that works for you. And like you say, it can be different from for everybody, but that's the critical factor. Where do I want to be and how am I going to get there? And having that mindset can be really, really difficult when you're really, really low.
Yeah.
Also, I'm also interested that you get a burning sensation in your head. I'm not laughing. I am laughing, but not for that reason. What I think is really interesting is this link between the physiological reaction we have to stress, and people find so many different things. And people I've spoken to, I mean, I've not heard this one before, but you know, right through to headaches, aches and pains, to carpal tunnel type syndrome, to constipation, to IBS, to somebody once said to me they'd done a counseling session or a meditation session, and they'd been asked, think about, or a hypnosis session, irrelevant, Sarah, carry on. So where in your body do you not feel anxiety? And the only place she could not feel anxiety was in her baby toe. Like, I find that concept, like, that wouldn't resonate with me. I couldn't close my eyes and think where I'm not feeling anxiety. But I do know for me that I have physiological triggers that tell me you've ignored your emotional signaling for too long now. I'm going to shut you down. And that's so interesting. There must be stuff that happens to you, Wes, before you hit burning sensations. And have you learned to recognize what those are?
Yeah, so short-tempered, a lot more short-tempered, especially with the girls, which is the reason that we've got into this routine, because we need that time before the girls then come and join us. To have that, but
join us, you make it sound like it's so civilized in the morning.
Yeah, it's not civilized. Sorry, it's just the word that comes
before
to mind.
They come in and go, I'm hungry.
Before they cause havoc is probably a better word. Although they've started waking up at a similar time, but they know to kind of leave us alone. And another important factor as well is, you know, in your mind when you start feeling overwhelmed, when it's happened, and you know the triggers and you listen to your body. You know that when it's starting to happen, and for me or for us, the best thing that we can do is just to take time out. And I get, because I used to be the same. I haven't got time to take time out. What are you on about? I've got so much work to do. This needs doing, that needs doing, this needs doing. But it's to realise that you set your own time constraints on what you think is important, but isn't important to other people, and that taking 3 or 4 hours out of the day to go for a walk along the beach, or taking a day off when you think that you can't, but you actually can, and it's to go and do something that lights you up, or that chills you out. So for us, it's walking along the beach, and doing it regularly as well, so that you're you're not even getting to that point where you get triggered for overwhelm. So there's a difference between being busy and then having complete overwhelm of there's just too much going on. What am I doing? Where am I going? And so for us, it's important for us that we take those days out.
We literally, when we get to that point, don't we? And it's not even, it doesn't have to be both of us. It's even if one of us knows that the other one's feeling it, and we almost just have to stop, don't we? And that might only be an hour, sometimes just having that 1 hour. You know, without the kids as well, that's been really hard in lockdown, because you haven't been able to do that. So we've had to use other kind of ways and strategies and things, haven't we, throughout that? But we did it 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Ended up just taking the morning off work, decided the day before. And it felt like we've been on a mini break. I
think I saw your post on LinkedIn, and I showed Neil and said, we should do this.
Definitely.
Water, the ocean is my happy place, always has been. And I love paddleboarding, but I'm also a fair weather paddleboarder. So I'm really looking forward to the weather heating up. And one of the best meetings I ever had was on a paddleboard, because we've got a few. So I gave the other person the paddleboard and like, right, we're doing it this way today. It'll be fun. But just something you just said a minute ago, I find really interesting. So there's a book called, I've got it here, Things You Can See Only When You Slow Down, and it's by Haynes, Hayminsunim, and it's really interesting. I've got the book at home and I love it. And one of the things it said in there is, you should meditate for, I don't know, I'm making the numbers up, but 20 minutes every day, unless you're very busy, in which case you should meditate for an hour.
Yeah.
And I think it is so powerful, just finding a bit of space. That's what we're lacking. The world doesn't allow us that space anymore. You've got Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all these things telling you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you should be living this life, you should be thinner, taller, longer hair, whatever the hell you should be doing. There's always something that you're not. And the world is just so full of this white noise. And one of my triggers is, and I didn't actually recognize I did this. My husband knows me better than I do. And he pointed this particular habit out, which is whenever I'm completely overwhelmed, I start looking into growing my own vegetables and moving to the Outer Hebrides. And it's obviously this like real deep need just to get back to simplicity and stop all of the busyness. But I hadn't recognized it till he said. Another thing that he says to me, probably on a weekly basis, which should tell me I'm heading to Outer Hebrides world, is are you going to continue running headlong into that brick wall, or do you think you should take 10 minutes out just now to avoid getting there? And almost always my response is, I can't, I've got birthday cards to write, and that kind of stuff. And I've learned to recognize now, okay, it's happening again. Good. I'll have a cup of tea. But just learning the emotional signals before they're smacking you in the face. If we could all as a society do that, we'd be happier. And also, if we could recognize what our internal patterns and behaviors and beliefs are that are subconscious, I think we'd be kinder to ourselves and others.
Definitely. It's awesome that Neil picks up on, sorry, am I allowed to say Neil? I should have said husband.
No, I think I said
awesome
Neil.
That Neil picks up on these as
Neil's
well.
not a husband.
Awkward.
It's awesome that he picks up on this, because there'll be a lot of couples out there that probably wouldn't have that kind of relationship. And then the other thing I was going to say is that pretty much every person is guided by their own set of beliefs and values, and they can be fairly difficult to change unless you're willing to try and change it and learn how to do it as well.
And also be aware of them.
And some people don't even know that they can be changed.
One of the mantras that people tell themselves as a general rule, and also that you find in a lot of Western society, I might be being unfair, I might be get trolled, I don't know, is this idea that, well, that's not fair. Life's not fair. Suck it up. We all have to. It's unfair. And I say that to my kids all the time. They're always going, that's not fair. And they wait a second and then they go, life's not fair. Well, learn the lesson now, because you'll be happier for it. And I really love conversations like this, and I really hope that the whole Coffee Calm Connection movement, I'm going to call it a movement because that's what we're going to make it. The whole Coffee Calm Connection movement is something that, when you read the Mingo book, you listened to the Mingo book, you had that moment like, oh, I'm in control. This is me. I can change this. And other people do this. And actually there's this whole concept of inner voice, and how I really hope that what Coffee Calm Connection does, even if just for a few people, is give them that lightning moment to go, all right, life's unfair, it sucks, and actually I can control how I react to it. That's the aim.
Do you know what, that was a game changer for me. It sounds so simple. One day when I just realized, like you said, shit's going to happen all the time, and you can't control other people, but you can control how you react to things. And I can honestly say now, I really rarely, so I get to the point where things, you know, really piss me off to a majorly.
Yeah.
It's rare. And but also it is okay to feel like that as well. And I've learned that it's okay to feel everything, but I don't stay in that place. I certainly can't stay angry for very long. I'm really rubbish at doing that. If we ever fall out, and literally I will forget what we've fallen out about, and I'm like, oh, but I'm annoyed because I had a point and now I've forgotten what it was.
Winner, chicken dinner.
I can't remember my name most of the time, but I could tell you every argument we've ever had and why it's Neil's fault. He puts up with a lot.
to add to Bex as well, without going too deep, I think anyone that is at that kind of feeling of that bottom stage, it's just to take small steps. You don't have to do everything in one go all at the same time, although that's personally what I try to do, but it is just general little steps. And so, like, say the meditation, when I started it, I was just doing like a minute a day and laughing at myself, and then kind of built it up from that. But and it's, we talk about it quite often. There's loads of books we've read, but in particular like the compound effect, and just to gather that it's just to get the basis of it. Okay, so again, it talks about little small changes, but those small changes over a period of time amount to big change. And so the other book as well, which you're probably going to laugh at me about, but you got me to read it, was like the 5 languages of love.
That, do you know what, that was always quite a pivotal point. It was
massively, because it basically tells you how people, have you read it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was quite an amazing book.
And we instantly knew as well, didn't we? We were like, oh, wow, this is your language, this is your Latin. To actually see it from that point of view, the way we communicate with each other has changed so much based on that book, hasn't it?
We actually talk now.
Do you know what? I got the book and I was like, oh my God, Neil, you have got to listen to this book. And what I didn't know was, because Neil listens to a lot of podcasts, and he'd been listening to a series of podcasts about the book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have done that before, where you've kind of come at something at the same time and gone, you know, we're kind of both on the same line. And it was a really interesting thing to understand what it is he needs to feel loved and what it is I need. And actually, they're really quite different. So interesting. And actually they do this a little bit. So just understanding that about each other. One of the things that I want to pick up on before we finish and I take your entire day out, one of the things that I want to pick up on is, you said, Wes, earlier that you noticed that when Bex is in a bad place, she shuts down a bit. That's the same with Neil and I. Guess who shuts down? Neil. And I'm all about, oh, I've noticed a problem, let's fix it. And that doesn't always go well with Neil. But take that interaction, right? I need to fix things and you've totally shut down. That interaction has, in our marriage, caused some pretty bad problems at certain points. And actually, some have got close to being pretty bad, like, all right, game over. But always through it, you kind of persevere, don't drop at the first go, persevere and find that communication thread. Because almost always there's just a divide in what page you're on and where the communication is. And I think that's an important lesson, because I think, you know, divorce and separation and things like that happens a lot now. And sometimes it is just because the communication thread's gone. And that honeymoon, happy
mingo moon,
the happy mingo moon. Oh my God, amazing. It goes. And when you have kids and you throw kids and you throw work and you end up like, I take everything out on Neil and I don't know how he puts up with it. But that, finding that communication and understanding the signaling between you is kind of like a lifetime's work, and it changes. And people kind of get that, but people don't get it for themselves. You've got to know yourself. You're always changing. What are your own emotional signals, and how, you know, what's happening in your brain, and how do you understand it? What's your core belief system? How's it moved on? Just putting a bit of time and effort into that, I think, is incredible. And I follow someone on LinkedIn called Yana Dowling, and I really want to get her on a podcast. And she does a lot of like LinkedIn videos, and she did one today which is about tip number 4 for mental fitness. And what she was saying is, if you decide you want to go and run a 5K for charity, you change your behaviors. You put in a schedule to run, and you'll increase that. And you might change your sleeping habits, and you might change your nutritional habits or your drinking water habits, etc. Why then would you not do the same to benefit your mental health?
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I think, is a really powerful concept, and I really love talking to you guys. We should do this every week for fun.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's like a therapy session in itself when we talk, isn't it?
It totally is, because we're so aligned. So I really appreciate your time on Coffee, Calm and Connections podcast. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Yeah, it was good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Your reviews, shares and followership is incredibly valuable to us. If you'd like to know more about our work through Coffee, Calm and Connection and how we can support you, please email us at hello@coffeecalmconnection.org or follow us on social media. Thank you.